Good morning, Ms. George. Good morning, Ms. Reed. All right. Ms. McLaughlin, we were not going to start without you. The introductions take a minute or so, so we did that. So I was told council wants to see me, and it should probably be at sidebar.
Yes, screenshot to just
me.
three. Evan, yeah.
There's 3 posts. Yeah, this is indicating like a well known. Sorry. But you'll see he has more interactive posts. So we've marked it. So what I'm going to do is this is something that's going to take some time. Why don't we bring the jurors over? You all can look at it. We can discuss it at a later point because it doesn't concern anything we need to address right now. And next time, if there is something that comes up like this, please let the other side know. That would have cut out on all of this.
All right, to the court, please.
At some point, you can get into Mr. McDermott, maybe somebody can pick the button.
May be seated.
Happening now, jury selection resumes this morning for the high-profile Karen Read trial. 12 jurors have been selected so far, with 4 more to go, which means that we may see opening statements potentially early next week. It looks like today's hearing is now getting underway. Let's listen in.
Hearing. All persons have any business before the Honorable Beverly Cannoni, Justice of the Norfolk Superior Court, and for the County of Norfolk. Draw near, give your attendance, and you shall be heard. So I say to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, this court is now open. Jurors remain standing, all the parties may be seated.
Jurors, can I have each of you raise your right hand? You solemnly swear to give true answers to such questions as shall be put forth to you by the court, so help you God. Thank you. You can have a seat. May I call the case, Your Honor?
Please.
This is 2282CR117, the Commonwealth versus Karen Read. Can I have counsel identify themselves, please?
Good morning, Your Honor. Laura McLaughlin for the Commonwealth.
Good morning, Ms. McLaughlin.
Adam Lally for the Commonwealth. Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning, Mr. Lally.
Good morning, Your Honor. Hank Brennan for the Commonwealth.
Good morning, Mr. Brennan.
Good morning, Your Honor. Alan Jackson from the street.
Good morning, Mr. Jackson.
Good morning, Your Honor. Elizabeth Little, also on behalf.
Good morning, Ms. Little.
Good morning, Your Honor. Robert Leslie on behalf of Ms. Reed.
Good morning, Mr. Leslie.
Good morning, Your Honor. David Kennedy from Karen Reed.
Good morning, Mr. Yannetti.
Good morning, Your Honor. Victoria George for Karen Read.
Good morning, Ms. George. Good morning, Ms. Reed. Good morning, jurors. My name's Beverly Cannoni. I'm a judge of this court, and I want to give you some idea on how we think your day would shape up. First, I want to thank you for your patience this morning. It sometimes takes a while to get over here with paperwork, and sometimes I meet with the lawyers beforehand, so we tried to do it as quickly as possible. We do appreciate your patience. We also thank you for being here. Jury duty is certainly one of the most important civic duties we have, and we know that it's an inconvenience, but we do appreciate that you're here, ready, willing, and able to serve if called upon to do so. You've heard that we're impaneling a criminal case, Commonwealth versus Karen Read. The Commonwealth alleges that at approximately 6 a.m. on the morning of January 29, 2022, the Canton Police Department received a 911 call reporting an unresponsive male party in the snow outside a residence at 34 Fairview Road in that town. Officers responded and discovered the man, later identified as John O'Keefe, off the roadway in the front lawn area. Officers also identified 3 women with Mr. O'Keefe, one of whom was the defendant, Karen Read, the girlfriend of Mr. O'Keefe. The defendant had been with Mr. O'Keefe the previous evening at 2 different bars in Canton and had driven with him to this residence in the early morning hours of this date. Mr. O'Keefe was treated by paramedics from the Canton Fire Department and transported to the Good Samaritan Medical Center, where he was later pronounced deceased. The Commonwealth alleges that the defendant struck Mr. O'Keefe with her vehicle earlier that morning and then left the scene, while Mr. O'Keefe lay injured in the snow during a blizzard. The defendant denies these allegations, and she is presumed to be innocent and has pled not guilty. Now, Ms. Read is charged with second-degree murder. She is also charged with manslaughter while operating under the influence and leaving the scene after causing personal injury or death. I will describe these crimes in greater detail at the end of the case when I teach the jury the law. But briefly, murder is the unlawful killing of a human being. There are various ways in which the Commonwealth can prove a murder case, and the Commonwealth is permitted to proceed under all theories it believes it can prove. Here, the Commonwealth alleges that the defendant committed murder and that the murder was murder in the second degree. In order to prove the defendant guilty of second-degree murder, the Commonwealth must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant committed an unlawful killing and that it was done with malice. In comparison, involuntary manslaughter is an unintentional, unlawful killing caused by wanton or reckless conduct. These terms and the elements of the crimes will be explained to you in detail at the end of the case before you begin your deliberations. Now, at the outset, I would like to address the issue of public interest in this case and the duty of this court to adhere to the rule of law. John Adams said that we are a government of laws, not of men, and that the law must be deaf to the clamoring of the public. He meant that while public opinion about a given subject may ebb and flow, the law must be steady, reliable, and even-handed. We know that on the subject of this case, there are people advocating for one outcome or another with intensity, but without the benefit of having heard or seen any evidence at all. The law works in a different way, and the difference is crucial to our system of justice. The jurors selected for this trial will hear and judge the evidence. They will decide what the facts are, and where the evidence is contested, they will determine where the truth lies. Ultimately, the jury will decide whether the Commonwealth has carried its burden of proving that the defendant is guilty of any crime beyond a reasonable doubt. People outside of this building have rights, and we know that they have voices, but this criminal trial will be decided by an independent jury, free from outside interference, based only upon the evidence presented in this courtroom and the law. This is the only way to ensure that every person who comes before the court receives a fair trial. It is just that simple and that important. So while public comment will likely continue, the rule of law will be upheld. In order to determine your eligibility to serve on this case, I'm going to ask questions to you all as a group, and then I am going to ask you to fill out a supplemental questionnaire. We have found that the use of this questionnaire is helpful for several reasons. First, there are some personal questions on it, and we ask that you be candid. In addition, the process of filling out the questionnaire provides the opportunity to be more reflective as you answer the questions, rather than just being put on the spot and asked to give immediate answers. After you fill out the questionnaire, we will have you come up to the sidebar one at a time so that we can follow up on your answers to those questions and to my questions. I want to thank you in advance for your patience as we go through this process. As you may know, the lawyers for the parties participate in the selection of the jury. Under our law, each of the parties has the right to exercise what we call juror challenges. This means that each party has the right to challenge a certain number of prospective jurors for any reason or for no reason at all. Therefore, some of you may be excused during the impanelment procedure. If you're not selected for jury service on this case, please don't take it personally. Don't think that somehow we think you're not a fair person. It's not a reflection on you at all. You will be directed back to the jury room and perhaps be picked for a different trial in a different case. In a few minutes, I will pose a number of questions to you as a group, and you have taken an oath that requires you to truthfully answer these questions and all questions posed to you. I'm not going to ask you to take your juror cards out yet. I'll ask you to do that as it gets closer. But if your answer is yes to any question that I have, I'll ask you to raise your hand and hold up your juror card in the air with the numbers facing out so that the court officers can read the number from the card. The fact that you answer yes to one of my questions does not mean that you are automatically disqualified from jury service. It simply means that there are matters that the lawyers and I need to discuss with you at sidebar. If you find a question that I asked to be overly intrusive, you can elect to answer that question at sidebar as well. I will have additional questions for you which relate to issues that may be raised in this trial and are designed to give us information regarding your ability to serve as a fair and impartial juror. And the lawyers are permitted to ask you questions for the same purpose. This is not a test. There is no right or wrong answer. We're simply looking for your best and honest answer. Now I'm going to have the lawyers introduce themselves to you, and I'm going to ask defense counsel to introduce their client. Starting with the Commonwealth, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Hank Brennan. I represent the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Along with me, I'd like to introduce my two colleagues.
Good morning, my name is Laura McLaughlin. I'm an Assistant District Attorney representing communities in Norfolk County. Thank you for being here.
Good morning. My name is Adam Lally, Assistant District Attorney with the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office. Just want to thank you all for your time and attention and being here today.
Thank you. For the defendant, please.
Good morning, folks. My name is Alan Jackson. To my right is Karen Reed. I'm honored and privileged, along with my colleagues, to represent her during the course of this trial.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. My name is Elizabeth Little, and I also have the honor of representing Ms. Reed.
Good morning, my name is Robert Alessi. Thank you very much for taking the time to be here today. It is also my honor and privilege to be representing Ms. Reed.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is David Yannetti. I'm an attorney. I have offices in Boston and right here in Dedham. Truly my pleasure and privilege to represent Karen Reed.
Good morning. My name is Victoria George, and I also have the privilege of representing Ms. Reed.
Good morning, I'm Karen Reed. Thank you for being here.
All right, thank you all. Jurors, I'm about to read you a witness list. It's very long. It doesn't mean that all of the people on this witness list will be called as witnesses at trial, but you may hear their names mentioned during the trial, so it's important that you listen to the names, because when I ask you a series of questions, the first question I'm going to ask you is whether you know any of the jurors, of the witnesses. So the list is long. It's in alphabetical order by first name. So Aidan Kearney from Jefferson, Mass. Dr. Isaac Wolf from South Miami, Florida. Alfred Lopalato from Canton. Allison McCabe, Canton. Andre Porto from the Mass State Police Crime Lab. Andrew Klain from Bridgewater. Andrew Rentschler, who is a PhD from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Angela Malvone, Canton. Annie Chung, Canton. Anthony Flamati, who is with the Canton Fire Department. Ashley Bell, Canton. Ashley Valaire, who is with the Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab. Brian Albert, Norwood. Brian Albert Jr., Boston. Brian Higgins, Sandwich. Brian Loughran, Canton. Brian Wanless, who is a retired from the Canton Police Department. Bridget Meehan, keeper of the records for Canton. Caitlin Albert, Easton. Lieutenant Charles Ray of the Canton Police Department. Canton Chief of Police, Helena Rafferty. Chris Van E., who is a PhD from Novi, Michigan. Christina Hanley from the Mass State Police. Christopher Albert, Canton. Christopher Curran, Canton. Colleen Crawford from the Norfolk DA's office. Courtney Proctor, Canton. Kurt Roberts, Canton. Daniel Whitley from the Canton Fire Department. Daniel Wolf, who's a PhD from Penns Park, Pennsylvania. Derek Ellington from Wake Forest, North Carolina. Dr. Marie Russell from Los Angeles. Dr. Elizabeth Laposada, who is from Providence, Rhode Island. Elizabeth Proctor, Canton. Eric Hanlon, Canton. Erin Beatty, Canton. Erin O'Keefe, West Bridgewater. Francis Walsh from the Canton Fire Department. Garrett Wing, Green Cove Springs, Florida. Gary Fowler from Brockton. Gregory Woodbury, Canton Fire Department. Gretchen Voss from Boston. Hannah Knowles, the Mass State Police Crime Lab. Heather Maxon, Walpole. Erabito Hernandez from the Boston Police Department. Holly Price, Mountain View, California. Ian Whiffen from Vienna, Virginia. Dr. Irene Scortibello from the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner here in Massachusetts. James Crosby, who is a PhD from Jacksonville, Florida. Janet Reed from Dighton. Jason Becker from the Canton Fire Department. Jean DeMoulis from Canton. Jennifer McCabe, Canton. Jessica Hyde from Bridgeport, New York. John O'Keefe Sr. from Braintree. Judson Welcher, who's a PhD from a company called Aperture LLC. Julie Albert, Canton. Julie Nagel, Canton. Dr. Justin Rice from South Weymouth. There are 2 juveniles from Canton, the first of whom's initials are KF and the second PF. Caitlin Boudreau from Raynham. Karina Kolakithis from Canton. Katie Camerano from Canton. Katie McLaughlin, the Canton Fire Department. The keeper of the records for Ring from Hawthorne, California. Kerry Curran, Canton. Kerry Roberts, Canton. Kevin Albert, Canton. Kevin O'Hara from the Mass State Police. Lance Mello from the State Police Crime Lab. Laura Sullivan from Pembroke. Laurie Cahill, Worcester. Leslie Pearlstein from Canton. Lieutenant Michael Lenk from the Canton Police Department. Louis Justress from Canton. Lieutenant Brian Tully, Mass State Police. Lieutenant John Fanning, Mass State Police. Lieutenant Paul Gallagher, Canton Police. Maggie Gaffney, Bonita Springs, Florida. Mark Lopalato from Canton. Margaret O'Keefe, Canton. Marietta Sullivan from Pembroke, Mary Souza, Dayton, Matthew Amory, Canton, Matthew DeSogra, Charlotte, North Carolina, Matthew Erickson, Grosse Pointe Farms, Michigan, Matthew Kelly from the Canton Fire Department, Matthew Kelsch from the FBI, Matthew McCabe, Canton, Maureen Harnett, State Police Crime Lab, Megan Mariani, New York, New York, Michael Camerano, Canton, Michael Easter, Los Angeles, Michael Trotta, Canton Public Works, Michael Wagner from Foxborough, Mike Maroli, Bridgewater, Mike Rushworth from Thompson Station, Tennessee, Natalie Wyweek Berschneider from San Marino, California, Nathan Reed, Raynham, Nicholas Bradford, Lorton, Virginia, Nicholas Curran, West Roxbury, Nicholas Kolakithis, Canton, Nicole Albert, Norwood, Norfolk County District Attorney Michael Morrissey, Officer Kelly Deaver from the Boston Police, Officer Nicholas Barrows from the Dayton Police Department, Patrick Haggerty, Somerset, Paul Makowski, Melrose, Paul O'Keefe, Canton, Rebecca Bison, Canton, Rebecca Trayers, Norfolk, Mass., Dr. Renee Stonebridge, who is also with the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, and she works out of Boston, Richard Green, St. Pete Beach, Florida, Richard Donatino from Canton, Robert Gilman, Hull, Ryan Nagel, Canton, Sarah Levinson, Canton, Sergeant Brian Gallerini from the Needham Police Department, Sergeant Sean Good, Canton Police Department, Sergeant Paul DiGiambattista from Canton Police Department, Sergeant Yuri Buchanan from the Massachusetts State Police, Shannon Burgess, South Lake, Texas, Cheryl Waugh, Canton, Sophie Herzan, Mass State Police Crime Lab, Stephanie Devlin, also from the Crime Lab, Stephen Mullaney, Canton Police Department, Steve Nelson, Norfolk DA's Office, Stephen Bernstein, who is a keeper of the records from Stoughton, Stephen Ridge, Boston Police, Stephen Seraph, Canton Police, Stephen Scanlon from West Roxbury, Terry Kuhn from Davis, California, Tess Chart from Lorton, Virginia, Thomas Beatty, Canton, Thomas Kelleher, Canton, Thomas Martin, Weymouth, Timothy Nuttall, Canton Fire Department, Tristan Morris from Easton. The following are Mass State Police troopers: Trooper Connor Keith, Trooper David DeChico, Trooper Evan Brent, Trooper Jeffrey Koskowski, Trooper Joseph Paul, Trooper Kathleen Prince, Trooper Michael Proctor, Trooper Nicholas Garino, Trooper Zachary Clark, Wendell Robery from Canton, William Reed from North Dayton. Those are the witnesses that may testify, or at least you will hear their names. So it's a long list. This case is going to take a while to try. We're in the process of impaneling a jury. We don't know how much longer that will take. Once we get a jury, the lawyers tell me that their best estimate is that the case will take 6 to 8 weeks for the evidence. Once the evidence is in, the lawyers give their closing arguments, I instruct the jury on the law, and then the jury deliberates for as long as they need to deliberate. So that's our schedule. It is the best estimate we can give you folks. I can tell you that during trial, every single day before we recess for the day, I let the jury know whether we are on track, ahead of schedule, or behind schedule, and I have never once had to say we were behind schedule. So we understand how important your time is to you, and we can be as efficient as we can possibly be. There are a few days sprinkled in that we will be out during that, and a few half days where we will go until 1 o'clock or so. That's the schedule. The way the days look is we will start at 9 o'clock in the morning. We will take a break at around 11 for a 15 or 20-minute recess, and then lunch will be brought in so that you don't have to walk down to Dedham and come back. Again, trying to be efficient with the time, and that'll be about 40, 45 minutes during the day, and then we'll go until about 4 o'clock every day. That's the schedule that we anticipate. And again, it is a good faith estimate. So now it might help if I give you a preview about some basic law that applies to criminal cases like this. It's my job to teach the jury the law, and I don't do that completely until the end of the trial. So for now, I'll give you a brief summary of some of the important legal principles that will govern this trial. First, and most basically, Ms. Reed starts this trial presumed to be innocent. The fact that she was arrested or that she was indicted is not proof of anything. An indictment is simply a piece of paper. It just makes an accusation. It's a formal manner in bringing an accused person from to trial in the Superior Court. But it's only the jury, in other words, you folks, who can decide whether the prosecution has proved its case beyond a reasonable doubt and to a moral certainty. If the Commonwealth does not do that, then the presumption of innocence requires you to find the defendant not guilty. The law does not require a defendant to prove his or her innocence, to produce any evidence whatsoever, or to do anything other than attend the trial. This presumption of innocence remains with the defendant until you, the jury, make your determination after listening and considering all of the evidence. So a similarly important principle of law is that the defendant has an absolute right not to testify, since the entire burden of proof in this case is on the Commonwealth to prove that she is guilty. Under our system of law, a defendant has a perfect right to say to the government, "You accuse me, now you prove it, and prove it beyond a reasonable doubt and to a moral certainty. I do not have to say a word." A defendant's decision whether or not to testify has nothing to do with the question of whether he or she is guilty. The jury must not consider it in any way and cannot discuss it during deliberations. Jurors in a criminal case must determine whether the Commonwealth has proved its case against the defendant beyond a reasonable doubt based solely on the testimony of the witnesses and the exhibits. That brings me to the requirement of proof beyond reasonable doubt. What is proof beyond a reasonable doubt? The term is often used and probably pretty well understood, though it is not easily defined. Proof beyond a reasonable doubt does not mean proof beyond all possible doubt, for everything in the lives of human beings is open to some possible or imaginary doubt. A charge is proved beyond a reasonable doubt if, after you have compared and considered all of the evidence, you have in your minds an abiding conviction to a moral certainty that the charge is true. When we refer to moral certainty, we mean the highest degree of certainty possible in matters relating to human affairs, based solely on the evidence that has been put before the jury in the case. I have told you that every person is presumed to be innocent unless and until he or she is proved guilty, and that the burden of proof is on the Commonwealth. If you evaluate all the evidence and you still have a reasonable doubt remaining, the defendant is entitled to the benefit of that doubt and must be acquitted. It is not enough for the Commonwealth to establish a probability, even a strong probability, that the defendant is more likely to be guilty than not guilty. That is not enough. Instead, the evidence must convince you of the defendant's guilt to a reasonable and moral certainty, a certainty that convinces your understanding and satisfies your reason and judgment as jurors who are sworn to act conscientiously on the evidence. This is what we mean by proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Our system of justice depends on judges like me and jurors like you being able and willing to make careful and fair decisions. All people deserve fair and equal treatment in our system of justice, regardless of their race, national origin, religion, age, ability, gender, sexual orientation, education, income level, or any other personal characteristic. You have agreed to be fair, and I am sure that you want to be fair, but that is not always easy. One difficulty comes from our own built-in expectations and assumptions. They exist even if we're not aware of them, and even if we believe we do not have them. Some of you may have heard this called implicit bias, and that is what I'm talking about. Of course, we judges have the same problem as everyone else, so let me share a few strategies that we have found useful. First, slow down. Do not rush to a decision. Hasty decisions are more likely to reflect stereotypes or hidden biases. Second, keep an open mind. Avoid drawing conclusions until the end of the case when you and your fellow jurors deliberate. Remember that when you deliberate, you will have all the evidence and all the time you need to make a careful decision. So there truly is no need to start making your mind up before then. Third, you should listen closely to all the witnesses. That is the best way to ensure that you decide this case based on the evidence and the law instead of upon unsupported assumptions. Fourth, as you listen to the testimony about the people involved in this case, consider them as individuals rather than as members of a particular group. Finally, I might ask myself, would I view the evidence differently if the people were from different groups, such as different racial, ethnic, or gender identity groups? At the end of this case, I will remind you of these strategies and ask you to focus on the evidence instead of on any unsupported assumptions you may have. All we ask is that you, individually and as a group, do your best to resolve this case based upon the evidence and the law, without sympathy, bias, or prejudice, to the best of your ability as human beings. Now, I know that some of this may be confusing, and perhaps all of this is confusing at this early stage. You'll certainly be in a better position to understand this at the end of the case when you have heard the evidence and I can explain the law to you. So don't be worried if you didn't catch everything I've said. Why am I telling you these things now? Because we need to know if you are able to follow the law on this case. You don't necessarily have to agree with the law, but all jurors will have to apply the law as I describe it to you. So, for jury selection, it's important to know if any of you might have some doubts whether you can accept and follow these legal principles. Now, I ask you to take out your juror cards, please, because I'm going to ask you a series of questions. So if your answer is yes to any of these questions, please raise your hand. But before we begin, I understand that sometimes jurors don't fill out the juror questionnaires that are sent to you in a complete manner. Sometimes we're in a hurry to get those forms back in, or we might think our situation doesn't apply to the question that's being asked. Also, sometimes people forget to write in whether they were a witness in a case, a criminal defendant, a juror, or a party in some case. So if you realize now, or before you come up to us at sidebar, that there's some parts of your questionnaire that aren't complete, please let us know. And if we see things like you didn't fill in how old you are, we'll ask you, or your prior employment or your current employment if you're currently working, things like that. So we will ask you those, but if you know in advance, please let us know. All right, first question. Do any of you folks know, or any close personal friend or family member know, or have you had any prior dealings with any of the witnesses? Sure. Do you, a close personal friend or family member, know, or have you had any prior dealings with any of the witnesses whose names I read?
Juror number 835, juror number 852, juror number 803.
Juror number 802. Juror number 793.
Thank you. Do any of you folks or a close personal friend or family member know, or have you had any prior dealings with the lawyers in this case or the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office? I see no affirmative response. Oh, I'm sorry.
Juror 802.
Thank you. Do you, a close personal friend or family member, have any financial or other personal interest whatsoever in this case or its outcome? I see no affirmative responses. Please raise your hand if you have seen, heard, or talked about this case.
Juror number 806, juror 781. Please hold your cards high. Thank you. And you're facing me correctly. Thank you. Juror 808. Juror 786. Juror 846. Juror 785. Juror 827. Juror 842. 792. 826. 788. 836. 851. 793.
Juror 780. Juror 822. Juror 853. Juror 819. Juror 824. Juror 798. Juror 794. Juror 795. Juror 802. Juror 812.
Juror 832, 839, 840, 833, 790, 829, 796, 834, 855, 797, 791, 815, 835, 814, 843, 852, 804, 807, 805, 844, 817, 809, 803, and 810.
All right, thank you. Please raise your hand if you have expressed or formed any opinion with respect to this case.
Juror 806. Juror 808. Juror 846. Juror 842. 792. 826. 819. 856. 853. 822. And 780.
832, 833, 790, 829, 796, 843, 835, 815, 791, 856, 852, 804, 844, 817, 809, and 803.
All right. Thank you. Are any of you aware of any bias or prejudice that you may have in regard to this case or in favor of or against either of the parties? If so, please raise your hand.
806. 856.
833, 790, 829, 791, 815, 835, 852, 803, 809, and 817.
Okay. Thank you. Do any of you folks have any difficulty hearing or any problem with understanding the English language, any physical or mental condition, or any religious or philosophical belief that might interfere with your ability to hear the evidence in this case, to understand the evidence, to concentrate during the trial, or to deliberate for the purpose of reaching a verdict? Please raise your hand.
808. 846. 856. 794.
796, and 811.
Thank you. Would any of you folks have any difficulty following the important constitutional principles that I explained to you earlier? First, that the burden of proof rests entirely on the Commonwealth. Second, that burden of proof is proof beyond a reasonable doubt and to a moral certainty. And third, that the defendant has absolutely no burden to do anything. She doesn't have to testify. She doesn't have to present any evidence. In fact, her lawyers don't even need to ask a single question. Is there anyone who would have any difficulty following those very important constitutional principles? I see no affirmative responses. I can tell you folks that after every trial I talk to the jurors, and though some of them may have not been looking forward to jury duty, every jury that I talk to, people tell me that they have found it to be a very interesting experience, and many times they tell me it was also a rewarding experience. But I do understand that for some of you, sitting on this jury will be a substantial hardship, and let me tell you what I mean by that. Every civic duty we have causes us to be inconvenienced. This is something much greater. It means that I excuse you for something that's personal to you, but the person sitting next to you has to step in and take your place. I usually think of it in terms of you have surgery or airline tickets scheduled for the duration that we will be in trial. But I will hear from those who believe they have a substantial hardship. If you think that's you, please raise your hand.
Juror 785, 846, 848, 878, 76, 851, 780, 822, 826, 853, 802, 832, 833, 790, 829, 843, 828, 797, 852, 804, 817, and 803.
Okay. In a minute, I'm going to leave the bench to give you a chance to fill out those supplemental questionnaires. As you do so, I'd ask that you not talk to anybody about them or share your thoughts or your information or any questions, comments, or concerns that you might have about jury duty, either generally or specifically about this case. If you have any concerns, you can bring that to my attention when I see you at sidebar. So, thank you.
All rise to the court, please.
You're watching WBZ News.
There's a glass-blowing school in Cambridge giving people the opportunity to learn a new skill in a fun and relaxed environment. Levin's out live this morning learning some of the techniques. Lev, it is also your birthday. Happy birthday. What a great gift to give someone you love.
You know, this is a perfect gift to give someone you love. You give them, and by the way, thank you so much. You can give them glass that you've blown. It's a personalized gift. But I'm going to ask Emery an important question here. Emery, do you ever get used to the heat?
No. You can deal with it, but it's still really hot.
What is it like to watch someone start out just making a bubble cup to when they come out with this spectacular vase?
It's one of the most exciting things is watching our students progress over the time that they're working with us. People start off really slow, and then they make these jumps in their ability, and it's absolutely fantastic to see. It's really rewarding as a teacher.
I will say, as a teacher, Sarah, you've been able to see some of these students go from, making little things to big things. When you tell yourself, I'm doing a great job, to make sure that, but how do you make sure that they know that they're doing a great job also?
Well, you can see their expression change when they get it.
Yeah.
They can be like, oh, yeah, you're going to do this. And they're like, and then when they finally get it and their face lights up, that's a really rewarding moment for me.
You were telling me, Kat, that you made something once that was, your first thing was, it was like a 10-pound Christmas ornament. So it's not tree-worthy. But this is a glass that's worthy. What is it like to get this one done?
Yeah, I mean, it's incredibly rewarding. It's allowed me to grow both creatively in my own expression, but also as a person too. And it's just been the coolest thing to see kind of my own progression, but also work alongside my instructors like Sarah and Emery, and to learn alongside of them as well. It's been really fantastic.
147 Sermon Street is where you guys are. You have classes all the time, but you guys are going to want to do a bigger space. How do you get there?
Well, we're excited. We're hoping that people will help us out. You can follow our journey through Noka Glass School. Check out the website, sign up for our email list, and then hopefully we're going to be Greater Boston Glassworks pretty soon and make this available for everyone.
Now, I've got to ask you, Sarah, how much fun do you have watching the progression of students and yourself as you see more people enjoy what you're doing?
It's so much fun. It's the best part of the job for sure.
And for Kat to come here at 4 o'clock in the morning, you love doing this.
I do. I really do love it.
What is it about it?
It's challenging, it's frustrating, but at the end it's incredibly rewarding, and you get to give people, to your point, really bad Christmas ornaments or really cool cups and other vessels, which is super cool. Yeah.
I will tell you what, Joe, there's a couple of things I learned this morning. Don't touch your hand in anything that's really, really red. Everything looks like lava. Make sure you stay away from anything warm. There's glass everywhere, so don't pick anything up. But also, this is so much fun. You get a chance to come in here to Noka Glass School and learn things. And by the way, the camaraderie between the students and the teachers is wonderful. I highly recommend this for anyone who's trying to do anything. I'll tell you what, Jordan, back to you.
Lev, thanks so much. What a cool experience, and I think everyone can relate to that advice. Don't go near anything that looks like lava. Stay away from anything hot.
Yes.
But what a great experience.
Stay away from lava. Stay away from lava.
Don't go near the lava, everyone. Lev,
there's like a television show that says that.
Oh, Lev, thanks so much. And such beautiful stuff you can see there, too. Gorgeous. So everyone should try to make something of their own. And still to come in our next half hour, there's a chill in the air, but a sign of spring is on the way when the Swan boats will take their first tour of the public garden.
CBS News Boston is now streaming live on our YouTube channel every morning from 7 to 9 a.m. So if you're watching us streaming on YouTube, please like and subscribe to our channel, CBS News Boston.